All right, so we had a great day today, successful first day of school. Yes, I'm going to get to the bus, which is, we had in need of improvement there, but uh, the rest of the day was a very successful day. What does that mean, and what does that look like? For me, we had a successful day of high quality instruction in almost every school, 274 schools with quality instruction on day one. I said that the most important variable is high quality instruction and that we have to have high quality instruction every day for 180 student teacher contact days. And immediately most people out there would think, well, the first day can't be strong instruction, but it was here. I visited 3 schools myself, Kettleson Elementary School, Dogan Elementary School, and Navarro Middle School. But I also called the division superintendents and some of the executive directors of instruction, and they gave me the same sort of report as what I saw at Kettleson, Dogan, and Navarro. I saw kids engaged in learning. I saw the teachers teaching the Texas standards. I saw principals going around. It was as if we'd been in school at least a few weeks. According to Orlando Riddick, he's the division superintendent of the North Division, so much further ahead than what we were a year ago. So you'll remember we started August 28th. It's not just the timeline, but if you compare August 12th this year to August 28th last year, we're way ahead instructionally. So, and I got to talk to a lot of kids there in the team centers, and they were happy to be back in school. Most of them are still learning a new school, new friends, but they're right back at it. So that's the first part. And the other stuff is the other things I want to point out are the things we did in preparation for this school year. I want to give a big shout out to our maintenance crews. In any summer, it's a tough thing to keep our to get our buildings ready and to get our air conditioning units fired up and ready to go. This summer in particular, we had the derecho in May that knocked out some rooftop units and air conditioning systems, and then we had the hurricane, which did further damage to our buildings, but also air conditioning units. Lost power for a while and all of that. And then we had the rainiest July, or one of the rainiest Julys in some time in Houston. And so getting all of our schools open today, 274 schools open today, remained open today, with all the challenges we have with air conditioning, I think was pretty phenomenal for our crews. Keep in mind, we're going to have this battle every day through August and September and probably part of October, fighting the battle with the heat. And then we'll have it again in April and May. But to have all the schools open on time, I was very proud of our schools. Particularly want to point out Sinclair, the elementary that had the trees on the portables was a feat to get ready for this year, and they're ready to go. Project Chrysalis, the school that we moved from the portables that were just always have been a problem. We moved them across the parking lot to the annex, Lockwood Annex, and that community is now really happy. The new conditions, the air conditioning, of course, but just more modern, modern trailers or portables rather. And so that community is really happy, and that took some doing, but facility-wise, I think we had a good start. We also had a good start with regard to staffing. So we had 28 vacancies out of 10,640. That's got to put in perspective a number of kids. That's less than 0.3% of the teachers. So we have very few subs in the buildings today. We have no subs in the NES schools, of course. So the students had effective teaching with very few subs out of the 10,640 teachers today. So that was another large feat and a success. Let's talk about transportation real quick, and then I'll answer some questions. So you'll recall that we needed to, in the district, revamp our transportation system. And it's going to take more than, this year or last year to get it fixed. Lots of problems with routes, the number of kids on a bus, the distances that we have to travel, and the amount of money we spend on transportation. We spent $56 million last year transporting 9,000 students. So as a result of that, we started making some changes. We added satellites, and we added a transportation platform called EduLog to help with the routing. And obviously, we didn't have all our I's dotted and T's crossed with regard to that software. And so there's still some bugs, and as a result, some kids got two different routes. They got the correct route, and they got some emails that saying they have a different route, or a route for somebody that's not their child. So that's a problem. We're going to do better tomorrow. We know that for some families, that's a big deal to have a last minute notification with the wrong route. So that's unacceptable. We'll get that right. The other thing that we think we can do better tomorrow is we can have more and even double the size of the call center where people can call in and get information. As it impacts schools, it wasn't that large an impact. I mean, for any family, if that's you, then that's a huge impact. But as the schools as a whole, the kids got to school. Most of them got to school on time, the overwhelming majority. I talked, for example, to Principal Vela at Pin Oak. I don't think she'll mind me saying, in her experience, and she has a lot of bus riders. She has up to 600 kids who could ride the bus, and most of them don't ride the bus, even though they're eligible. That's what she told me. And she didn't have any bus that was late, and the kids didn't have many transportation issues from her community that she knows of, and so she feels pretty good about how transportation worked for her school. That doesn't mean for any one parent it didn't work well. So we know we got some work to do there, but overall we had a good first start of the school year. And if the ultimate metric is whether kids got served and their education on this day was strong and lasts for 180 days, then I think you have to say that was accomplished for today.
Okay, we're going to address your question. Please, before us, let me know you have a question and wait for your turn. First question. Megan.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you had any data on the number of late, missed bus routes or canceled bus routes, if there's any information, hard numbers on that.
I don't have any hard numbers. In fact, we're holding this early so that some folks can have their stories written this evening. But when I leave here, I'm going to go to our staff meeting where we'll have a little bit more details on today's, especially the numbers. So I don't have any hard numbers for you now. I can tell you that overwhelming majority of buses got to school on time. There were some buses that were a few minutes late because of the first day around the school, in and out. You got parents drop off and pick up some new parents, and so it's always a little bit more chaotic around the school, and that's why some of the buses were late. But as far as I know, the buses got to their stops on time, and nobody missed their stops.
KPRC and then Margaret.
Superintendent Miles, good afternoon. You touched on it very briefly. We can just go over the numbers again really fast. You had how many students last year? 50. The cost was over 50 million. How many students riding the bus this year? You just touch on that.
Yeah, so we had last year, 56 million for 9,000 students. Just like every year, the first day or so is a little bit different, and we haven't confirmed the numbers, but I think it's approximately 2,000 students riding the bus today. That number will grow.
Margaret?
Mine is twofold. I was out at Sharpstown this morning. Some kids were waiting to go to Carnegie, and they were not on time. And what was surprising was the older one, who's a junior, said, "Yeah, last year it was on time." So what went wrong?
So I'm not aware of that, and maybe you're talking about that's their first initial stop.
That's their stop, and then they get
Mhm.
picked up from there to be taken to
Yeah.
Carnegie, which has been set up, I guess, for a while.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that. That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay, well, if you all could let me know afterwards. And the other thing is, a lot of parents, I believe, were really upset, and it seems like you worked through the weekend to bring, which is, great, E for effort, except wouldn't it have been better to tell parents a lot sooner so they'd know what route their kids were gonna have? There were a lot of parents who still did, end of last week, I don't know where my kid is going, I don't even know where the nearest bus stop is, because they shift. And so can you speak to why that was? What I kept hearing was, they had all summer, why wasn't this worked out sooner?
Yeah, so a lot of parents did get their routes. I think we gave out 17,000 routes. And there's a balance between when you do the route, right? So we started, I think, I don't know, 8 days ago we started, or almost 10 days ago we started giving out routes. You can't give out routes too early because they will change ultimately as kids register. As kids register and enroll for routes, that's when you start putting routes together. If you give a route early and there's no other kids, then you have to cancel the route. So there's a balance somewhere. We think that, and this happens every year, by the way. It's not unique to this year. People get their routes about a week before, and as kids register or enroll, the routes they're given routes. So that started a while ago, and like I said, 17,000 kids got routes. Not all of them are eligible, for example, and not all of them will ride. And so for the next 2 weeks, you're going to ask me the same question because it fluctuates as some people. And we told people, look, let's just give them a route even if they're not eligible, and then worry about eligibility afterwards. So that's going to happen as kids. I already told you there's 17,000, but there won't be that many riders. And so as kids drop off and as kids show up, as kids enroll, we're going to have to change the routes,
Victor?
or some routes anyway.
You had touched on this about the system or software in which caused parents to basically get information of students that were not theirs. Can you just expand on that and what you believe the corrective issues there were?
Yeah, so we had Edulog. We're asking Edulog representatives to help, and they were here this weekend to help with that. And also, we think we found the mistake. So I think if it hasn't gone out already, we have new routes going out, or the correct routes going out. They're not actually new.
Mario?
And following up on his question on the software and the bugs that, it had and the reason why some of the issues happened, why were still, as of last night, 700 students not having bus routes? And was this software tested over the summer before it was rolled out to parents?
Mm-hmm. Software was tested. There's still some bugs that we have to work out in the entire system. And we're working our way through the 700 students without routes. Keep in mind, kids enroll every day. And over the last, few days, kids have enrolled. And so you have the need to give them routes almost every day. So we'll have more tomorrow that need to be routed and more the next day. We'll have more the next 2 weeks, and then it'll start to slow down.
And then can I just ask about the call centers? You mentioned that there are going to be more call centers now people were not getting through because of the overwhelming amount of calls, or what happened there? Some people got voicemail, some people were just not able to get through.
Yeah, I can't speak for all of that, but yes, there were a lot of calls, and so we're doubling the size of the number of people, not the number of call centers, the number of people at the call centers.
You
How
have a
many
follow-up
people
question?
are there?
Follow-up
There,
question?
Something else with regards to this, but.
do you want me to answer this? Yeah, they're about, we're adding 8 to the people that were already there, and I think there were about 8.
One of the busing challenges that we heard from today, in talking with drivers, were at Butler, and they indicated to us that a couple of special needs drivers, that the buses they lacked air conditioning that was working. And these are concerns that they have expressed to the bus mechanics and the people in charge there for quite some time. But there were buses today shuttling kids that did not have air conditioning, this according to the drivers who were in these buses. What are your concerns with regards to that, and how do you address that?
Yeah, I don't know. We have extra buses. That's one of the things that bus drivers and their dispatchers do is they check the bus and they check for air. So if there are some very specific drivers who have a specific bus, they know that they're supposed to raise that with the dispatcher. So we can solve that. I hadn't heard that as a problem, so I'm sure that's not a big issue. But if it's a specific issue, I would ask the bus driver to talk to their dispatcher, because we have extra buses, and that's part of the pre-driving check that they're supposed to go through.
The same question is what I asked them. Did you not raise this? They said we have raised it. Management is not listening. They didn't get us new buses.
Yeah.
We made this request on Thursday of last week and again on Friday. They did not provide them with a change in the bus.
Well, if you have specific names, or if they have specific issues, they can contact the dispatcher, and if nothing else, you can give me the names and I'll follow up.
Let's go to Daniel and then Asher.
Yes, Mr. Miles, we spoke with parents from Fort Houston Elementary. They say there's no air conditioning at the school. We spoke with them a few minutes, and there's still no air conditioning right now. What are you guys going to do to, with this heat, to prevent this from happening? They
So-
already asked that before the school year.
Yeah, we're on top of all the air conditioning, and just like every April and May, August and September, there's going to be maybe a specific classroom here or a specific classroom there, and sometimes it's more than that. For example, Fur Elementary or Fur High School was the only school where we had to move some kids today from the 3rd floor, or a handful of classrooms, to the 1st floor, the library and the auditorium, because of the heat. But we are on top of every single classroom, so if we don't have to close it, we won't. And if we can move a kid to this wing or this classroom, that's what we do. And so the principals, I tell you, if there's high classrooms, principals raise it with their senior executive director of support, and we get right on it. That's why we have temporary coolers. But I'm telling you again, every day you're going to hear something, and we're going to be on top of it, and we're going to move temporary coolers if we have to, and we're going to make sure our kids are safe, because we want them to work in an environment that's comfortable for learning. We can't learn well, we can't have high quality instruction if it's too hot or too cold in the winter. So we'll stay on top of it, and principals will let us know, but right now we have a handle on all of the air conditioning in the schools.
Asher and then Jay.
Mr. Miles, I think you may have mostly answered the question I was going to ask, but just to clarify, was Fur the only school that had serious AC issues?
Yes. Now, when you say serious, when it's 2 classrooms, kids in those 2 classrooms are going to think it's serious. But so I don't want to minimize that. But if it gets too warm, they're going to move the kids to a classroom where it's cool, or to the library, or somewhere like that. And we did not have to close any school today.
The Service Workers Union says that the payrolls for cafeteria workers and custodians is showing $0 as of today, despite working 80 hours during the last pay period. Do you know why their pay stubs aren't reflecting the hours that they worked?
No, first I've heard of it. I'll check in on that.
Check that. Any other question?
Yeah, just to clarify about the bus routes. So out of these 700 students, is it at some point are they gonna have guaranteed the riding?
Yeah, we're working through that list. I think we've already knocked down a couple hundred, but we're working through that list and we'll get them routes relatively soon.
And other question for parents, is there any way to check the routes or the changes in real time, or just the calling is the only way?
They can call their principal. There's people at the schools that have the document that show the routes, so they can check that way, or they can call in to the transportation barn. But probably the best way to get their individual attention is at their school.
Margaret?
I talked to one bus driver who said when the bus driver showed up on, I think, Monday, August 5th, expecting this bus driver, I'm trying real hard to avoid gender, and the other 30 bus drivers expecting to get routes. Only 3 of them got routes. And instead, some of them were assigned to ride along with the bus drivers and I guess keep things happy or going okay on the bus. But they were told there might be more routes later in the year when it gets cold. Could you explain that to me?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but I know we have more bus drivers than routes right now. And so I think somebody's probably saying, look, we might get more routes. Depends on how many kids come and how many kids ride. And so things are in flux for the next couple of weeks, and it's probably in flux for bus drivers too.
So you're keeping the ones who get to be the ride-along for now?
Yeah, I don't know anything about it ride along, so I'll find out about that.
We're gonna address 2 more questions, Asher and Maria then.
Thanks. I know division superintendents, executive directors were out in schools all through today. You touched on this, but can you kind of summarize the key themes you heard from them if you've gotten to debrief with them what they were seeing in classrooms?
Yeah, I talked to every one of the division superintendents, and I talked to a couple other executive directors. And what they're saying is kind of what I started with. They're saying good instruction on day one. Just to keep that in perspective, I'm not sure this happens in any other district where there's good instruction on day one. And to have 180,000 kids show up, 10,600 teachers show up, and provide good instruction for the kids. They were very impressed. The division soups were very impressed with what was going on in the classroom, just as I was in the 3 schools that I visited. I'll be in schools all week, so I'll have a better feel for at least a handful of schools. But it was good, very strong, something to build on. Of course, we're not there yet, but a much better start to the school year.
And just real quick, follow the 180,000. That's just generally how many students attend HISD. That's not a count from today, is it?
That's what we call a warm body count, but very preliminary, guys. So don't hold me to that number. What that means is we counted kids in the building.
Sounds pretty high for day one. Is that your initial
That's what I think too. I think for day one that's pretty high, although the schools I went to had really good attendance on day one. But that is preliminary, asterisk, okay? And I'll have better numbers when I go to this meeting, and I'll have better numbers towards the end of the week. I'm loath to give you numbers because I can guarantee you they will change. In the end of the day, we have to go off of what kids register. So that's what we have to do.
Maria?
And then you touched on the AC issues at one particular school in 2 classrooms. Can you tell us how many schools in the district had AC issues and if they will be fixed by tomorrow?
So I don't know exactly how many schools had AC issues. I know that every day, this week, next week, and this month and next month, we're going to have some AC issues in a dozen schools or more every day. And by that, I mean there'll be a classroom here or a classroom there. It'll be one AC unit going out. It'll be a chiller that goes down that we then put back up. It'll be a chiller that goes down overnight, and then we're going to have to start it in the morning. It's going to be that battle every day probably through October.
And then just one quick thing that we just heard and wanted to see if this is true or not. We heard from parents that all fourth grade teachers from Atherton Elementary were dismissed a day before school started, and other schools were asked to supply teachers to fill the spots. Is this true? Have you heard anything about this? Or?
So that's not accurate, but what is accurate is there are some teachers at Atherton that was replaced last week with other stronger, more effective teachers so that Atherton can succeed. And they started today, and as far as I know, they did a great job at Atherton today, the teachers.
All right, guys, that's all. Remember that we're gonna have another update tomorrow at the same time.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.